projects and the measurements and metrics of the outcomes that we forget to step back and look at some of the great developments within our communities. Our tennis improvements, splash pads, Ed Rice Community Center, a little before and after for you on Ed Rice, and then the Fraser Library, which was an $11 million project. And this is not really page 311. I'm sorry about that. It probably feels like that, but it is actually page 31. Sorry about that. So in closing, I would like to thank Mayor Strickland and this administration for the leadership and guidance that provided for a proposed budget that we believe makes targeted strategic investments in our infrastructure and that continues to address the important initiatives that provide vital services across and throughout our community. I would also like to thank you, Council, for your partnership, your collaboration, and to reaffirm with you this administration's commitment to continuing to work together for the benefit and betterment of our city, our communities, and our citizens. And as the division leaders bring to you their proposed FY23 CIP budget for your review, consideration, and approval, we thank you for your time, your resources, and your commitment to the continued success of our city.
Thank you, Chief Ford.
Oh, I'm not finished.
Oh. Well, before you do, I just want to announce for the record that we have been joined by Councilpersons Morgan, Colvette, Canale, Smiley, and Swearingen. Clerk. Well, and then congratulations to Councilman Morgan on his nomination. He didn't have an opponent, but congratulations nonetheless. And congratulations to our chairman. You're now Madam Chair Clerk. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, that was the easy part. Then I will now yield the floor to my colleague, Chief McGowan.
Well, before we move, though, I wanted to see if anybody had any questions on your presentation.
This is part of.
Oh, okay, okay.
Great. But we can answer questions at
sure.
any time. But he only has one slide to share.
Okay.
But I think you will find it more impactful than the many slides I just shared.
Okay.
No, I don't know about that, but Doug McGowan, Chief Operating Officer, I won't be quite as formal or detailed as Shirley, but oftentimes we deal with an annual CIP budget, and I just want to provide a little bit of context. And so we have a lot of projects that you all have funded over the years. In fact, if we just added them up, right now we have 312 active capital projects under management in the city. 91 of those are in the Accelerate Memphis program. There's about 220 or so that are actually CIP projects across all of the areas. And we'll make sure we get this slide to you. It's just a really good summary. So it's not just the projects that we do, it's the service that we provide. And I wanted to provide this snapshot to all of you. You know, we have 8 police precincts, 9 if you count traffic, and we have about 2,100 cars, and we have 57 fire stations, 78 pieces of heavy equipment, and we have hundreds of pieces of light equipment in the fire department. Our sewer division covers 3,300 miles of sewers, and we have 2 very large sewer treatment plants that treat billions of gallons of sewage each and every year. We have 1,500 miles of channels and conveyances for our stormwater system, 51,000 catch basins. And when you talk about, there's more than 50,000 manhole covers that they have to deal with each and every year. You often see sidewalks that we maintain, 3,400 miles of sidewalks, and you see work around the city. If you're in Midtown at all, you see a lot of things around Poplar Avenue. It's ADA curb ramps that we're installing, 29,650 ADA curb ramps that we're responsible for. And engineering, you think about traffic signals, there's 787 signalized intersections in the city that they have to maintain, more than 100,000 signs and 2,000 miles of street markings, 397 bridges that we're responsible for maintaining in the city. And when we start talking about facilities, Antonio Adams and his team maintains more than 300 city facilities, 400 structures, and 5,000 pieces of rolling stock. Our solid waste division has 3 transfer stations, which are very large industrial sites. We have hundreds of packers, pickers, bob trucks, tractor trailers, all that need to be maintained. And the fact that we often talk about, we have more than 162 parks in the city, 120 of which are developed, 17 swimming pools, 30 community and senior centers, which often get a lot of our attention, and many, 7 golf courses. And I also want to talk about our grant-funded operations. It's easy to kind of overlook that we have 100 fixed route buses that MATA has to run each and every day, 75 paratransit, and 1,500 active bus stops. But if you counted up all the bus stops around the city, there's actually closer to 4,500 bus stops. Not to mention the 5 miles of riverfront that our partners help us to maintain, and all of the investments in the convention center with meeting rooms, exhibit halls, and the buildings that we own, AutoZone Park and FedEx Forum. So it is a very broad operation. There is a lot of things going on in the city, and it's easy to look at any one project and say, well, why don't we just do this or that? I just wanted to provide this kind of context for you all. And I think it's really good talking points to talk about all the myriad of services that the city of Memphis performs and that all of you help us fund that are critical to making the city of Memphis a great place to live. So I'll provide this to you if you'd like to have it for a talking point. I have one for our operating budget too that just kind of shows the number of people, the number of stations and all that as a quick snapshot talking point if you'd like to have it. But just a bit of context as we get into each individual conversation for you, that there's a lot to running a city, and our team does a pretty good job of balancing all of those in addition to the new projects that we're more than happy to add this year. So with that, I will stop, take any questions that you all have, and then we can move into the other budget presentations.
Thank you. Colleagues, does anybody have any questions of the presentation from Chief Ford or Mr. McGowan? Okay. I had just a couple. Yes. Well, it's really just clarification. So when you were providing, and this was page 12, the capital improvement, and then you broke down the other, the 26. That's included in the presentation further towards the back where we had everything delineated. Okay. And when we talk about the reduction, this is that was the reduction for the sewer enterprise fund from 148.5 to 137.5. Okay. And I just want to say too, this is very helpful too, because when I saw the allocations for instance, the Leicester Community Center, I see the 1 year snapshot of how much, but what you also presented gave us a total look, looking at what the ask would be for 24, 25, and so forth. So I found that to be very helpful. So thank you for that. And I think. Okay, so part of that too, and I don't have my notes, and I know we're sort of combining things a bit. Was it ARPA that we looked at some cost acceleration that we allocated some for? How much did we allocate out of ARPA for that?
So that was $4 million.
Okay.
$4 million for cost acceleration.
Okay, so my question now is, I know that we've committed a lot of those funds. Have we found any leftover? Because one of the things that I advocated for was that we allocate more of ARPA for these type of projects, so we wouldn't have to use general fund, whether it's, and I know this is CIP, but are we finding any, I guess, unallocated funds under ARPA that we could use to offset some of our cost acceleration?
Thank you. And I did receive your request to give an update at ARPA at the next budget committee, so we will be doing that. Right now, we currently have everything allocated. Then, of course, there are projects that are still very much in their initiation stage. They haven't moved yet. Some of them have already been completed, and that money has already been allocated, spent, executed. So we will be providing you a report of that. We do expect that we will receive our second allocation within the next week or two, so that funding base is secured to continue out with those projects. But currently, we do not have anything that has been allocated that has come back and said we just don't need it.
Okay, and so along those lines too, let's say we have some things that may be in the initial phases. Is there not a requirement that they have to be complete by a drop dead date? And are we behind on anywhere we may not be able to meet that?
I would say, not so far, sir. We're on track to meet all of the obligations of the ARPA funding. And I do want to say that we expect to receive more as well. So the federal government's not done pushing money out. Recently, we just received notification through the state that we were allocated $98 million. I want to thank Robert Connect for that, for water and wastewater infrastructure. So $98 million came to the city outside of the other ARPA money we received. So when you talk about offsetting costs that we have here, we've done the initial allocation based on projects, and some has to go to water, some has to go to wastewater. So probably 30-some million will go to water projects for for MLGW that would be proposed, and about 58 million or 55 would be allocated to wastewater for the city of Memphis. That's sewer money that we don't have to spend out of the city's sewer fund. So we expect other allocations for other kinds of infrastructure to come to us as well to help offset some of the general fund costs.
Okay. And I noticed that there is going to be so looking at, I'm on page 12 again. Okay. Okay, capital pay goes sewer. Okay, never mind. I'll just, so I guess a question that I have here, I was looking at I know that we have a capital pay go for sewer, but do we have a balance, if you would, for our general fund capital pay? I'll ask that question just know that I have that question when we talk about the operating budget.
I don't know if you recall it, Q2, we presented where we were on our expenditures to date, but we can provide that on projects that we have as well.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I only have one question that's a piggyback to a question the chair started with, and Mr. McGowan informed us in regards to this additional funds. At this point, they're not being considered any place in the projections.
The additional ARPA funds are not considered in this presentation.
Right. Okay, right.
This presentation specifically relates to GO bond funding for expenditures, capital expenditures, as well as capital pay go for the coming year. It does not, these projects that are presented to you for this year's funding is not impacted by that.
Okay, so are you anticipating the funds to come before this year ends? Come on, Doug, you had the answers.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Do you anticipate those new aqua funds to be available before the end of this fiscal, not this fiscal year, the upcoming fiscal year?
Yes, they have an allocation of the state at $98 million. That's one example. We have to submit the projects to the state. They approve them, then we execute the project and get reimbursed the funds. There's about a 20% local match that will come out of our local sewer fund. So if we get $50 million allocation from the state, we'll do $60 million of projects. So
will those be new projects, or will those that funding could be used against the current?
Absolutely, ma'am. They're used against, we have a plan that's about a 10-year plan for our sewer, for our stormwater. And what this does is allows us to use some federal funding that we would otherwise, failing a pandemic, we would have been on our own to essentially fund these. So this helps us fund our plan.
Our
current plan, yes,
okay.
ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
One last question. Right hours before we came here, the Fed increased interest rates by 50 basis points, or 0.5 of 1%. I know that in the past, we have been issuing bonds and we've been able to get a premium on those issuances. How is that going to, have we planned and taken into consideration, have we baked into this that rate increase and perhaps any other that are projected? How's that going to affect? Because that's going to affect, well, we may not have a premium at all. If we have to issue more, how are we planning for that possibility?
Thank you, sir. It's a good question. It will not impact the current debt structure because that debt structure is set. It will only impact any new debt that we issue, and barring, the availability for us to issue new debt, we would just look at it on a case-by-case basis to see where we are. It does impact our refunding. Last year I brought to you several refunding issues where we were able to refund our debt, get it at a lower interest rate, and have a significant cost savings from that. In fact, recently the project that we brought to you that you approved for refunding, we currently have on hold simply because the interest rates changed enough that it was not conducive for us to issue those bonds or to refund and reissue.
Okay, so you say that it's not going to, I know it's not going to affect any current structure, but if we're talking about spending $91 million, have we already issued those bonds for that allocation?
We have not issued bonds for the current allocation we
Okay.
have. And just kind of a reminder, one of the tools that we use is the commercial paper allocation. And we do that, so, it's kind of like a line of credit. So we issue commercial paper, and as we spend down then on our bond funding, then we replenish our commercial paper. And we only do that about every year and a half.
So my question is, this is going to be, so this 95 we're talking about here, is that going to be commercial paper financed? Okay, and so we just have to deal with whatever the rates are when we, in a year and a half, whatever the case, when we
That
finance
is correct, sir.
So is our commercial paper rate, is that affected by an increase of 50 basis points?
I'm sure it will be.
Okay,
Yes,
so how is that affecting the 95? Do we still have a premium or?
Debt service on the 95.
Right. It is, so until we actually issue, we don't know exactly the impact of that. We could get an impact on our current rates right now, and I could bring that back to you.
That would be helpful.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Warren.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. You asked my question. I was wanting to know how this was going to affect our borrowing capability moving forward.
Okay, thanks.
Negatively impact. I guess, how much of a percentage of our ability to borrow will this influence us not having money available to spend on projects, and how much it will be paying in interest, since we're having to borrow money at a higher rate? Do you have any idea of percentages that we're looking at and gross numbers?
So I do not at this time, but I can get with our debt manager, and this is something that we do on a regular basis, pretty much a monthly basis, looking at our economic forecast for the next time period, and I can have him run some allocations based on when we anticipate our next commercial paper and the impact that might have on that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, Councilman.
If there are no other questions, thank you, Chief Ford and Chief McGowan. We will move on to the first presentation. We got a little catching up to do. So our first presentation is going to be the police division. Chief, good morning and good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you very much.
To your first budget presentation as our police chief.
Yes, as your police chief, and as Chief Ford said, I'm in full effect for the first
Indeed,
budget presentation.
Okay, I think I'm on now.
you are, and the
Wanted to
floor is
make
yours.
sure.
And just state your name, title for the record, please.
Okay. Sarah Lynn J. Davis, Chief of Police. So thank you, Council, for giving us an opportunity to present our fiscal year 2023 capital improvement budget request. Many thanks to Chief Ford and Chief McGowan for working with us through this process, and also my team, Chief Jones, and of course, Mr. Eason and our fiscal services team, who have worked really diligently to make sure that we were ready for this presentation today. So we really do appreciate the support that we get from Council especially as it relates to some of the very critical items that are important to us and projects that are underway and impending to ensure that we improve our service delivery to our community members. So this year's capital improvement budget covers 4 areas, 4 major projects in a total amount of $6,050,000 out of general obligation bonds. So the first project that I'll talk about is our in-car video. The purpose of this project is to install mobile in-car video cameras with the GPS tracking devices in new MPD vehicles and to provide body-worn cameras for MPD employees. This is an ongoing project that may have some costs each fiscal year. And that cost could be cloud storage fees, license and service fees, marketing fees, or other types of fees that are covered in our operating budget. So the funds expended to date are $10,608,305. This project began, or the program began, in March 2014. The council districts that this supports, various council districts throughout the city, and the total project cost is $15,702,305, forecasted through fiscal year 2027. This funding source is also, again, general obligated bond funding in the amount of $15,702,305. The total fiscal year 2023 funding request for this particular program is $1 million. Funding amounts for the next 4 years, or for fiscal 2024, is $794,000. Fiscal year 25 is $810,000. Fiscal year 26 is $827,000, and fiscal year 27 is $843,000. These projections are based upon current contract pricing for 92 vehicles from fleet management. Our fleet manager gives us these quotes, and these projections are based on market fluctuation over the next few years. 100 body-worn cameras and 12 camera docks. The yearly forecast is calculated at 2% increase per project per year, and that's taken under consideration market fluctuation. That's what that 2% is. And we are in the RFP process due to the expiration of our current contract for these services. Fiscal year 24 through fiscal year 27 are estimates and subject to changes based on RFP results. And as mentioned, the fiscal year 23 amount is $778,000. Total fiscal year 2023 funding forecasted numbers include also $180,000 for retrofitting 515 cars with power segregators and ticket printer mounts. So that $180,000 along with the $778,000 brings us upwards of $1 million for this particular project. Before I move on, are there any questions about this?
You can go ahead and complete your presentation. And we'll
Absolutely.
Have questions at the end.
So the next project is the Police Academy renovation. We're calling it the fiscal year 18 Police Academy renovation because this is when this particular project began. This project will continue to fund the renovation of the Memphis Police Training Academy, adding much needed updates and expansion of the existing facility. Fiscal year 18, we conducted a design for this project. Fiscal year 19, the gymnasium renovation. Fiscal year 20, there were further design costs and also furniture and IT costs that were associated with this project. Fiscal year 21, gym renovation and sprinkler funds. Fiscal year 22, additional classrooms. And the additional classrooms, there's been a delay in the additional classrooms. This didn't occur due to the fire sprinkler issue that we had, and we had to allocate funds toward fixing that problem before we could move forward with the additional classrooms. And then additional parking. The funds expended to date are $2,117,985. This project serves various council districts. Total project cost, $5,964,756. The original request again was in year fiscal calendar year, or excuse me, budget year fiscal 18 and 19. The general obligated bond funding amount is $5,964,756. And whenever grants are available, as you can see, we haven't had any support on either one of our previous projects through federal grants or state grants, but anytime we see where there are grant opportunities, we take advantage of those. The total fiscal year 2023 funding is $750,000. That is the ask for this particular fiscal year. And the projected funding amounts for the next 4 years for this project is fiscal year 24, $750,000. Fiscal year 25, $436,840, and we anticipate this project will be completed in fiscal year 25, no later than 26. Therefore, we're not requesting funds in either 26 or 27 fiscal year. The next project is our radio maintenance building rehabilitation. This also is an ongoing project. This project will rehabilitate the current city radio maintenance garage and office space. It will provide taller bay doors to service larger fire vehicles, a separate women's restroom, which they don't have right now, an HVAC system for the garage bay, updated work surfaces, and updated storage areas. So funds expended to date are $577,534. This project covers and supports all council districts. Total project cost, $2,762,822. This project began in 2019. Total fiscal year 2023 funding, $300,000. This fiscal year's ask is for that $300,000. Projected funding amounts for the next 4 years. In 24, $732,822. And after fiscal year 2024, we anticipate that this project will be complete and no later than fiscal 24-25. The next project is our new Mount Mariah Station. The discussion and beginning work for the new Mount Mariah Station began in 2019. The A&E was conducted in 2020. This project will provide funding for the construction of a new Mount Mariah Station. The building will provide a permanent facility for Mount Mariah Patrol area. The original building was completed in 1980. Funds expended to date are $30,000, and that was to pay for the A&E. This particular project serves Council District 3 and Super District 8. Total project cost, $10,923,086. This project also will be supported by general obligated funds. Total fiscal 2023 funding request is $4 million. Funding amounts for the next 4 years, fiscal year 2024, $5,661,086. And the following years, fiscal year 25, 26, and 27, we don't anticipate asking for additional money or additional capital funds. We estimate completion by fiscal year 24-25. And so this isn't a project that is underway. I have basically covered the 4 main projects, but I did want to talk a little bit about the rain station discussions that we're having with the administration. Much talk has been done about replacing rain station and that being a capital project in the future. We anticipate the fiscal year 2024 will begin an A&E for rain station. That building too was constructed in 1980 and is cost prohibitive to be renovated to today's standards. So we are looking at a brick and mortar project in the very near future, and we will come to this body at a later date in order to make that request. And last but not least, we have a current project underway that is, funds are already encumbered for the radio system upgrade in the amount of $6 million, but that is not an ask for this fiscal year budget.
And that completes your
That
presentation?
completes my
Okay.
presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions for the police director, police chief? Okay, Councilman Robinson and then Johnson.
I have two questions.
Mike, please.
I'm sorry. Who works on the accounting part? You're pulling your projects together for you. You haven't introduced them to us.
I apologize for that. That would be Mr. Eason. And is your assistant here, Mr. Eason?
Mr.
She's left?
Eason?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Eason, what's your first name if I need to send you something? Vincent? Thank you. And my second question was on the slide where you talked about GPS in cars. We're tracking the police officers, where they are. Do they have the ability to turn those systems off in the car?
We have recently disabled that ability for them to
Okay,
turn
thank
that
you.
off in the car.
That's it?
Thank you, Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Back on page number 2 again. At the top on the project name, you have it as BWC. Is that what this power segregators and ticket printer is?
Body worn cameras? I'm sorry. That should be body worn cameras, BWC.
Uh-huh.
And the ticket integrators, you want to talk a little bit
Yeah,
about
what
that?
is that? That's-
Yeah, so basically, when the cameras were first connected to the cars, they were connected to the fuse boxes. So that was blowing the fuses, making it inoperative. They've come up with a device as a solve now to route it directly to the battery in the trunk. So it's a device that's going to segregate that power so it doesn't blow the fuses.
Okay.
Right.
It's just, I'm sorry, it was a technical term that basically says we're fixing the current problem so that we don't have blown fuses in our cars.
Right.
Okay. I have another question, and this, I don't know who would answer, make sure I'm adding up correctly on page 3. When I look at the total project cost, $5,964,000, are you telling me that the funds spent to date plus this year asking in future should come back up to $5,964,756?
Okay, I want to make sure I give you the right answer for that. That's my academy project. My notes pages are a little bit different.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding how it's being, you won't be the only one doing it
It
like
is
this.
academy. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, council. And this is one of the reasons why Chief McGowan and I stay right here with you so that we can answer those type of questions. For project 2013, the Police Academy renovations, the current allocations and appropriations is a little over $4 million. As Chief said, the spend is $2.1 million. There's an additional 1.7 in unencumbered appropriations that's already out there.
So how would we know that?
You would not know that from here. I apologize.
Because I was going to ask that about all of the projects.
That's what I'm about to say.
Right, yeah,
I'm gonna back up on.
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
the same
Okay,
thing
right.
with the precinct. We have unallocated appropriations that, and we will make that note on our future ones where we have big projects like this, that the other unencumbered appropriations, things that you've already allocated and appropriated, we just haven't encumbered the funds yet. We just
Gotcha.
haven't contracted for the
That
funds.
was my question on the
We
rest
will
of it.
make
Yep.
sure we make that changes to our presentation templates for any of the big projects.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. And I have one other question. When we were going through the opera funding and care, did we buy any type of equipment with that funding for the police department? And how has it affected it? Did we save any money as a result of being able to buy that equipment ahead of
Actually,
time?
we have vehicles. Yeah, it's going to be, you can
So,
talk about it.
so the equipment's going to come in the second year. of the funding, so we're ready to go July. When July roll around, we'll be ready to go with those
Okay, so
purchases.
I'll see those savings on your day-to-day operation, and not in the CIP.
Right.
Yes. And much of those opera funding dollars will go toward vehicles.
Yeah, that's
Since
why I
we're rolling
wanted
out
to see how
the-
we saved money or got ahead as a result of those.
Absolutely.
Expenditure.
Vehicles and IT upgrades.
Okay. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? That was my major question with, didn't have the unencumbered, but one last thing, going back to the in-car video, GPS, and body-worn cameras. Looks like that we've expended much of this. How much of our fleet has been, that we've upgraded or?
Right, so currently, all of our cars that have come in have the equipment. They've been upgraded with the body worn, with the in-car cameras and stuff. We will have new fleet coming in. We're getting in some additional cars now. We've got 8 of the take-home cars coming in. They will be upgraded as well, but we have funding to cover those for anything that's coming in. But then the next year, the 92 will be the ARPA money, but that's what the purpose of the funding to cover those cameras, for in-car cameras.
Okay.
For those cars.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no other questions, may I have a motion to approve motion has been made and seconded to approve the CIP budget request for the Police Services Division. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That item passes. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next, we will have the Fire Division. Good afternoon. Welcome.
There we go. Now
Yes,
it's green.
yes.
2 shades of green. All right. You ready?
Yes, ma'am. Ready
All
when you are.
right. Gina Sweat, I'm your fire chief for the city of Memphis. Thank you for having us here today. Beside me is my new finance manager, Teresa Wilson. So this is her first time with me presenting, so y'all please be kind to her.
We will.
Okay. And then you see, I came heavy today with my entire command staff's behind me here supporting me. So
Good afternoon, everyone.
to be honest with you, that's really the ones that make everything happen. So I appreciate them here supporting me today. All right, so this is the Fire Division's FY23 Capital Improvement Budget presentation. In total amount of funding we're requesting this year is $3,771,200. And I appreciate Chief Ford sharing with you a couple of the big projects that we've been able to finish this past year, thanks to this administration and to the council support. Those of you who haven't been to our new fire headquarters on the fire campus, I would invite you to please come by. It's a very nice facility. It was much needed, and we're really operating well out of there. It's making us more efficient already, we're finding. Also, I think some of you have been by Fire Station 1. It opened up this year. Fire Station 5 opened up this year, and I'll be presenting and talking about Fire Station 1, and that's coming up out of the ground, and we'll be a little bit of funding to finish that up by the end of this year. So I'll move on to slide 2, and we'll talk about personal protective equipment. This is an ongoing request that we purchase every year. This is the turnout ensembles that the firefighters wear to go inside burning buildings. This also replaces any damaged face pieces or air pack, the breathing apparatus that they have to wear to go inside burning buildings. This amount should replace about 150 sets of turnout gear, and that's for any that are become damaged beyond repair, and to also outfit our new firefighters as they come on. We do have them fitted to fit the firefighter, and that provides the utmost protection for them so that they're actually fitted properly for them. Unlike what I had to wear when I first came on the job. So there's been many, many, many advancements in the past 30 years there with turnout gear. And as you see, my funding for the next few years, my increases, my ask is going up. And there's a very specific reason for that. We are guided by NFPA standards by which we operate, National Fire Protection Association. And the standard this past year changed. We've had a lot of conversations about cancer in the fire service and the carcinogens that our firefighters are exposed to. And thank you to the city, we now have presumptive cancer legislation that actually covers our firefighters who get these type of cancers. It's in the line of duty. So previously, we use these machines called extractors. That they have the previous mandate, they had to be put through this process, professionally cleaned in an extractor once a year. And that pulls all the carcinogens out of in between the fine pieces of material. So the new standard says that they have to be, now we have to wash them twice a year. It's a very rigid process on the turnouts. What we're finding is the gear is not lasting as long. In the past, we hope to get 10 years out of turnouts. So what we're seeing is the extra washings are causing them to deteriorate a little faster, as well as all of the on-scene decon that we're having to do to make sure that the firefighters are, remove as much of the carcinogens as possible. So that's why we're looking, that number, we're going to have to be replacing them a little more often than 10 years. And so that's still, we're still trying to figure out what that sweet spot's going to be. So hopefully by next year, we'll have enough research, we'll have done enough of it, we'll have a really good idea what our new standard's going to be there. And all of that is funded with GEO bonds. So next year, I'm asking for $644,000. On page 3, this is another ongoing, this is a request every year. We have 106 EMA sirens that we maintain at our Office of Emergency Management. Some of you are very familiar with that, especially Dr. Warren. He spent a lot of time with us down there last year during the pandemic. So we are actually responsible for the maintenance of those. And this amount, next year we're asking for $127,200. And that, depending on where the siren is located, that should help us replace 2 to 3 sirens. Some of them are on poles, some of them are located on buildings. And believe it or not, we have one on the ground right now. Cars like to run into those poles with sirens in them for some reason. So that gives us ample funding to replace 2 to 3 a year, depending on what the situation is. So pretty much that kind of stays fairly flat throughout the years. Some years we anticipate having to go in and do they have battery backup power on them. And so you see the years that are a little bit higher, that will be years that we will probably have to go in and replace some of the batteries for the backup power there. All right, and slide number 4 is Fire Station 1. This is our new station. It's in District 7 and Super District 8 on Chelsea Avenue. And as you recall, this is the station that's replacing the one on Jackson that's near St. Jude, and combining that with the other one that's located on Thomas. So those 2 stations will be combined into one. It will be very similar on the inside to Fire Station 43. It's basically the same design on the inside. It's just a tad bigger. It will also have a community room there where we can have community events. Our members of the community can use that space to hold meetings and things like that. We can also do adjunct training at that station so that firefighters, so our fire trucks don't have to go all the way out to Millington to where our training academy is. So this project is out of the ground now, and I'm asking for $500,000 and that will be to help us fund our contracted obligation on that building, and that'll complete that project. We anticipate finishing that and hopefully being able to move in December or at least by the first of the year. And as you see, the total cost on that is projected just under $8 million, $7,739,000. And then there's no out-year cost on that afterwards. Okay, fire station repair cover line. So as Chief McGowan stated, I have 57 fire stations. That includes the airport property, which the air which that is, we're reimbursed for the maintenance of that facility, that actually, so that one, so I have 56 stations that we manage repairs on the inside. We collaborate with our friends over in General Services. They help maintain the roofs and HVAC systems and those replacements. And then once they do those types, then we come in and do interior improvements. I want to remind you that our firefighters actually live in the fire stations. It's their home away from home. They work at least 10, 24-hour shifts a month. That means they spend a third of their life in these fire stations. Same thing as you do in your home. They have to live, they have to cook in the kitchen, they have to sleep, showers, bathrooms that they all share. And so this is their home away from home. As I said, we have 56 fire stations. Just so you know, our average fire station is 49 years old. So we have over half of our fire stations were built prior to 1972. So we have made some strides here lately and working with the mayor on some initiatives to help really ramp up those improvements as we move forward. But for next year, you'll see I'm asking for $1.5 million to do some general repairs inside the station. This would be things such as painting, things that you would do in your home to make it more comfortable, some kitchen renovation or bathroom repairs, things like that, to make the living environment more comfortable for them. Also included in this is something that we've really ramped up since I've been the director, is improving the gender separation. Believe it or not, that's still, until I became director, that was when we finally at least have separate sleeping spaces for females inside the fire stations. So it's pretty important work here. But you'll notice in the out years, I'm asking for a significant more amount of money each year. And that is to really ramp up that program. This next year, we want to really dive into what we can do to get the most bang for our buck, so that we can really improve the interior, the living, working conditions of the firefighters. And then on slide 6, and Councilman Canale, you're probably familiar with this, because if you look at where our new headquarters is, and you're coming over the Union Viaduct there, that's probably one of the most visible places in the city coming down Union Avenue. It used to look like a junkyard that's where the city was parking a lot of wrecked vehicles. My friends in police aren't here, but anyway, you would see a lot of wrecked cars and vehicles out there. It looked really like a junk. It was an eyesore for our city. I like to think that our new headquarters has really beautified that area. We're doing a lot of work out there to improvements to make it a campus that firefighters, it will be a destination. It's already making our work more efficient. So the drill tower is the training tower. It's pretty historic building. It's been there since the 60s, and that's where I went through fire school. That's where a lot of the firefighters trained. So what we are wanting to do is to turn that into a fitness wellness center that firefighters and quite honestly any city employee would be able to come out there and use that facility on the first 2 floors, and then the upper floors would be for treatment of firefighters with injuries to help them recover from OGIs and things like that faster. We have several programs to help them. So this would be a centralized location where in the center of the city where personnel could come off duty, and we have a lot of wellness and fitness initiatives planned for that facility once we get it up and running. As a matter of fact, yes, our new recruitment center is in the Avery building on the campus, so it will be all there in conjunction. So we're talking about you being able to use that facility, bringing kids out to the recruitment center and introduce them to what it's like to be a firefighter. We're actually bringing in virtual reality trainers so that so the kids can see what it's like to be a firefighter in a very safe environment. And then we can kind of measure their fitness where they are and put them on programs and give them an opportunity to come and use this facility. So we have a lot of great ideas planned for the campus. So next year I'm asking for $1 million, and that will be basically to get the design of the building done and do some improvements that are needed now to get it up. And then hopefully the remainder of the construction costs I'll be coming back to this body and asking for next year. And we spoke about the Avery renovations. That's the next slide. We've done a lot of work there. The Office of Emergency Management, as I stated, we're currently building out the old gymnasium back there to be our recruitment center. And then after we finish that entire building, that space will be renovated. Basically, in 2016, it was very underutilized. And now it's actually it'll be, that also will house our one-stop shop with the public. If they need an EMS run ticket, get a permit with the fire prevention office, all of those things, or get a fire report, they'll be able to do all of that at that one location, where in the past they had to go to 3 or 4 different locations. So it's basically making it more efficient for the citizens. Not only that, while they're there, they can go ahead and fill out an application to get a job with the city. But we're not asking for any money for this project next year, but next year I will come back to the body. We're going to, the only part of that building that hasn't been worked on is where our fire inspectors are, the fire prevention office. So they need some work in there to redesign their space to make it more friendly, more, they've gone more tech savvy now than the way they used to be, so actually put them in a environment that's more conducive to collaboration instead of the little cubicles that they're in now.
Hey, Councilman Jones, this is one of those very specific ones that you'll probably look at going, you have a total project cost of $2.3 million, you're only asking for $975 in your out years, but you've only spent a little bit. I just wanted to kind of put that in perspective for you. Our current allocations are approximately $3.3 million, and that is all but $19,000 of that has either been spent or encumbered already. Okay. So we're well on way to completion there. It's and according to our reports, it comes out about 99% complete, okay. But we still have a little bit to go. Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And on page, the next page, I do have a couple of carry forward that's in the presentation. I think last year we talked a lot about Fire Station 11. That's the station located there at Union and McLean. We worked, we've done a lot of work this year. The team has with the firefighters in that station, working with the historic, some people in the historic interest in that station, and also with our ADA people that we work with when we're designing and building stations. So we have, before we were kind of hampered to be able to renovate that station because of all of those bodies, but we've been able to come up with a plan. That project was designed and put out for bid, and that contract is working its way through the system now, so I'll be coming, that should be encumbered before the year's up, but since it's still out there right now, it's included in this. So that looks like that fire station will finally get the much-needed love that it needs and deserves, and like I said, it is probably the most visible fire station in the city. And this is the same thing with the drill tower improvements. This was money that we had this year to roof that building. That was designed and put out for bid, and now we're having to rebid that because of an issue with how that came in, but that's going back out for bid. Both of those projects should be appropriated and encumbered before this fiscal year is up. And that concludes my presentation. Again, I appreciate the council and your support. We've been able to do a lot of really nice things out there for our firefighters and for the citizens of Memphis, especially these new fire stations. I was talking to Councilwoman Robinson earlier about Fire Station 43, and we couldn't do that without your support. And I and the firefighters do appreciate it.
We have questions from Councilman Carlisle.
Thank you, Chairman. Mine are clerical. So I've got this in years past, and it's your first year, and so there may be some, but I'm having trouble reconciling. I know out years are a roadmap and they're subject to change, but what I'm having trouble reconciling, like for instance, Fire Station 1, project 2031, has a total project cost of let's just call it $7.74 million in the slide presentation, but the original adopted one was for $6.54 million. So has it gone up $1.2 million in cost? Like but we have to note those things. Like that's the important stuff. Like we need to, can't just like gloss over that. So
yeah, I think originally when we came to council for that first, that was an estimate based on the design of the building, and when it went out for bid, the actual bid came in I believe it was right at $6.8 million. So it was about 800,000 more than we had originally planned.
But the all-in cost still went up $1 million, which is fine. So it went up, it was at 6.5 and it's up, now we're saying it's 7.7, which, again, I get it. I'm just saying, as we're going through these presentations to all the directors, like, we have to note those things for the general public and for this council. Like, that's a substantial pricing difference and deviation from the original. And we're still gonna build the station, but like, I just wanna make sure that it's reconciling. It was the same for, I think the Avery renovations has 1.2 million allocated. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not sure it's super tight in the numbers. And I don't want to drag this on because it's not the end of the world. I think everybody's going to approve it, but there just seem to be discrepancies, right? So like take the PPE. So your typical out years, we're ramping up to go to like $1.8 million. And so you've got it now down back to $1 million, called $1.1 million. Is that what you anticipate? And how are we able to go from out years up to $1.8 million with costs going up? And now the out years on the slide presentation are showing $700,000 reduction in the out years. So those are some of the things that so again, like in last year's book, we showed FY 25 as $1,189,000, and then going to FY 26 as $1,931,000. You flatten that out by going to $1.1 million and $1.1 million. Is that what you really think is going to happen? Or are you thinking it's still going to cost a couple $1 million going in the out years? So let's just take PPE, for instance.
So as you say, every year things do change. So one thing we have done is we respect and we put out for rebid our fire turnout ensembles. And so, so that price change, from that was I believe it was a 5-year contract the first time, so we rebid it. So there was a little bit of a reduction there. So prices do change as we rebid and respec some of these projects.
And we love that. Especially when it goes our way.
Especially when it goes down.
That's right.
But they actually improved the quality of their turnouts. We just got a lot better pricing this time.
So, and then just one more quick one that I didn't fully understand. So we've spent on Avery in last year's book, or our roadmap here, it says we've got $1,440,000 expended, project spend to date. And in the slide presentation, it says funds expended to date are $650,000.
Yeah, this is just fiscal year 22. This has been a project that's gone across several years.
Okay, so the total project cost is.
Excuse me 1 second. Councilman Ford, can you all mute yourselves on your end, please?
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
So you've got a total project cost in the slide presentation of 4.3, and you're asking for $1.2 million. So I'm just making sure that I understand how we're going to finish the project in the roadmap, right?
So the Avery project, I'm not asking for anything this year.
Okay.
This coming year.
Oh, your FY 24, you're asking for 970. But that's my point is, do you have the so yeah.
Thank you, Councilman. As of this very moment, we have current allocation and appropriations of $3.3 million. Of that, I'm showing project spend to date $2,150,268, but I ran that report today.
I got it.
And then we also have encumbrance and commitments of $1,155,595.
Yeah.
So.
And my confusion was there's no carry forward, right? So that's why it's.
Because remember, once you allocate and appropriate it, it's available to spend. So it's not a carry forward. A carry forward is something that you've allocated that we haven't come back to you and appropriated for some reason.
I got you.
But what it is, Ms. Carlisle, is that we have the encumbrance that are not reflected here.
Right.
And so when this was printed, when they printed it, there's still a number out there that would be important for us to have.
It is, and ultimately, it's also just reconciling how much cash has been spent on the project.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think that's an important. I think that's an important element for any of the presentations that come before you is where we are to date, and that's why I always like to know historically, and that's how we watch this. But we can tell you that. This renovation, like I said, is $3.3 million. We have the project spent to date and encumbrances, and the last time this project was touched was April 14th. Okay. So I can tell you the last time something occurred, a transaction occurred on this project.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Carla.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question. I didn't question that because I just assumed you're going to correct it in the future presentations in regards to what's missing. But another question was raised. If the cost increase, such as this last, I think it was the fire station, are you required to come before the council to get that increase approved? Did we do that?
So you did, Fire Station 1, that contract was brought before the council and approved?
But the increase of the additional $1 million is my question.
No, because we were going to come back and ask for that this year, so the resolution.
So Councilwoman, we cannot spend more money than you've appropriated against
That's
a
what I'm just
project.
trying to make sure.
So what we're saying here is this year, with the additional money that's being requested, that is essentially your approval of the increased cost. What we didn't call out is the fact that the project increased, knowing we were coming back this budget. I will say we do other things in-house for the total project. So if there is in-house, cover line paving that Antonio does or Robert does for some of our city facilities, and if in the Fire Station 1 bid, part of that was asphalt paving in the amount of $150,000. If we can cover that with our in-house facilities paving, we won't come back and ask for more money. We'll just cover that with in-house to keep the project within cost.
Will they build out a services center like Antonio typically would?
Because we are responsible for the paving and everything, we can bill it to a service center, or we'll just make sure we cover it as a part, because we want to execute all of our in-house paving. We want to execute all of our, and you've heard me talk about that before. We'll aggregate. I estimate a project to be $200,000. When I finished it, I had $35,000 left over. I'll have a bunch of pockets of $35,000 that I can aggregate and say, I got enough to do the paving at Chief Sweat's Fire Station number 1. So if that incremental cost is higher, I wouldn't necessarily come back to you. I would just do the paving and then the construction that you've allocated, because you've already appropriated money for all those purposes. So, but your point is valid. I can't spend more on a project than you've appropriated against the project. So that's what this year is with Fire Station 1.
Yeah, and what you just said is confusing to me
Okay.
still,
Sure.
because I would assume that if someone else is gonna come in and do those extra little small things, as you mentioned, addition, it would fall under their budget. And in general, they would say, we're gonna do all these repairs, just like I think Chief Sweat mentioned earlier in regards to one project for all the fire stations. She just took a $1 million plus $1.5 million. So we know going everywhere, but it wouldn't be included in this increase. Look like you're trying to cover up for an increase. It's not adding up. I'm still confused.
So I would say
I'll hold up and get.
yeah, we don't
with you
ever try
individually.
to, we want to be absolutely candid with the cost increase, but we're also trying to execute in the year to get the project done. So we put the bid out to the contractor and we'll value engineer things back to say, okay, we're going to build the fire station. If it's towards the end of the year, I'll use the paving as an example. If the bid came back, it was $100,000 over, I can't spend more than I have on the project, so I'll value engineer out that paving because I know that I can do that in-house and still get the project done without a detrimental effect on any of the other general things that I'm doing.
All possible, but just note it, so we'll have an understanding
Absolutely.
of what's taking place.
It's a great point.
I understand, from the presentation you said initially, this is an unbelievable city we live in, and things are constantly moving 24 hours. You got to make it happen as things are available, materials are available, you have to move. So I understand you have to make wise judgment because you are in the management of these operations. But just make a note so we'll know. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you. Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the presentation as well. I just wanted to, Chief McGowan, make sure I understood as well. So when you mentioned about having like some left over in this project and that project, and then you just kind of aggregate it as it relates to that area. Say you needed paving and you had paving approved in this project and you had some left over, you pulled that left over and put it with this, and then you went on and did the payment instead of coming back to ask us, so you can stay on time and all of that. throughout the year or the course of time that I've been here, and say we have paving issues in our districts or need paving done, is it that you can pull those or aggregate those for other paving areas, or it has to be within the area that we've allotted?
No, ma'am. So there's a difference there. We have an in-house paving cover line for asphalt paving that we do for city facilities. I won't pull money out of your district or any of our planned neighborhood paving for this purpose. We have a cover line to make sure that we keep our facilities, our parks, all of our facilities. So it's all within that same bucket. I'm not gonna have Robert get a contractor say, well, don't do that street so we can do this parking lot. That's not it, so.
No, that's what I'm not asking that. I'm asking if there is leftover money for paving somewhere
what
in
you're
your
saying.
cover line, and there's paving needed somewhere else. Do you look and say, hey, we had some paving money left over? It's still paving, but it might not be paving at a fire station or
Right.
on your cover line, but you can aggregate all of those leftover paving buckets to fund these necessary payments in a neighborhood, a district, a street, somewhere else.
That's a great point. What we've had to do since the time you've been here, since we've been here, is that the cost of liquid asphalt has gone up. And so when a project finishes with a little left over, we're aggregating the cost just to finish the projects that are on the books because of increased costs. We haven't had the opportunity to say, I have enough to do one more street. If I got to that point, you can bet that the mayor would say, okay, you have enough to do one more street. Which one do you want us to do? To this point, it's been, what do we have on the schedule? How much paving have we done? Is there any left on the contract? Because the next one, the price just went up a little bit, so we'll put the money together to cover the overall citywide paving. Unfortunately, we haven't been to the point yet where we've had a bunch of money left over just to say, great, I can do now East Parkway from, North Parkway down to Southern or something. I just haven't had that opportunity yet, but we could do that if we finished and had money left over.
Okay, and the reason why I asked is the second budget that I was going through, I heard that along the way where we had found some money here or saw some money here, and so I asked for a report on the previous CIP projects that closed out, that had money left over, to be presented at the front of the next round of budgets, regarding CIP, so we could see that. And it's not carryover or anything, but just what you said about the parts that are left over that you can aggregate, so we could see all of those projects that finished that had money left over. We could kind of see where it, could be aggregated as well.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I do remember that request. I apologize for not bringing that to you here, just to let you know where we ended up. Ms. Ford just showed me, we had, out of all of our paving last year, for FY22, we had $46,000 left that wasn't expended, so it's not really a significant amount, but your point is valid. I dropped the ball and didn't bring that back to you. I should have.
And I wasn't just talking about paving, but like if you have 46 in paving
For
and
all, that's
50
right.
here and that could add up, so thank you, and I look forward to seeing it.
And thank you, Councilwoman Logan. And as you probably have been aware, in budget committees, you have seen general services, public works, parks, a lot of them come forward with resolutions asking for approval to either reallocate money from one project to fill a void in another project where we have, to your point, it is my goal to never collect with money on it. It is to reallocate that money, that appropriated spending, to another project. And our divisions bring that in the form of a resolution to council asking for that. And we've done that several times this year. And to what I was showing Mr. McGowan in terms of our in-house paving that he was talking about for FY22, we have either spent or encumbered all of that with the exception of $46,000. That's not to say between now and the end of June that's $46,000 won't get snapped up. But we try never to leave money when we get ready to close a project. If there is any, especially GEO bond funding, that has not been spent on that project, we come to you and ask you to either reallocate it or move it or return it back into available funding.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Okay. Colleagues, if there are no more questions on this item, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Okay, has been moved and second to approve the budget, CIP budget for fire services. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item passes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we will have general services.
That's where all the money's at. Robert and Antonio got all the money. Ask them where the money is for redoing the guys downstairs that is a bajillion years old. My chair has been there since Wyatt Chandler was the mayor.
We're working on the chairs, we're working on the chair. Yeah.
No, I'm like, we just need a couple $100,000. New desk, some carpet. That's all you need. That's all I need. That's all you need. That's all I'm looking for, man. I only need 7.
Oh, okay.
So council members, we sent, an electronic copy ahead of time and a hard copy, but Director Adams wanted to add some more context to yours, so he's sending out some additional printed copies to
Okay.
you. So thank you.
Mr. Adams, the floor is yours, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, I'm Antonio Adams, Director of General Services, and I have Ms. Twanita Farmer here with me, our operations coordinator. She helps with respect to our CIP projects and kind of helps me keep on track with our budget, and then, of course, helps us keep on track with moving the projects along. So I'm here to present our FY 2023 capital improvement budget request. Start here. We are asking for $30 million. These are coming in a form of general obligation bonds. The categories will be $6 million in capital acquisition, $16 million in major modification, and then $8 million in other projects. We'll start first with our other projects. This will be our Coke facility. So let's start here with the additional. We'll start with this document here that I'm sharing with you all, and this is phase 1, the fueling center. So I realized the last time I came to council that I needed to provide you all more context with the Coke facility. So we'll start with this particular document. This gives you a little orientation as to what the fueling center will look like. What this does is to my right and to your right, that is the fueling island. You're looking at from the Hollywood side of the street. That's where the fueling island is going to look, and you're looking into the Coke location or the city of Memphis location. So, Councilwoman Johnson, this is what it looks like. So you'll gain entry into that location. You'll pull in into that particular awning. You'll fuel and you'll pull back out. Okay, next slide. Scroll down, please. Now, this is the view of the entire complex from Southern. The first building that we will start modifying is that building there. That's the southernmost building. That's where the fleet operation will be. So the $8 million that we're requesting, we will relocate the operations at 671 St. Jude. That's the turf and agriculture shop, the body shop, hydraulic and welding shop, and then, of course, the turf, ag, hydraulic, welding, body. And then, of course, we're going to relocate the fire apparatus shop. Those shops will be located at that location. Top right top right on the other side of the awning, right there. That's where the fueling will be. And if you go to down to the black part, a little bit further down to your left, black top. No. There you go. Right there. A little bit further. Over. Forward. Yep. Left. A little bit further. There you go. That's where we're going to relocate some of our operations at 281 East Parkway. And that's where we're going to finish the spending the $8 million and relocate those operations. And so we will be able to relocate our code and environmental enforcement operations. And our goal is to relocate those operations starting. Our goal, Chief McGowan, is to relocate by what date? Next summer this time. So we have an ambitious construction and relocation cycle. As you can tell by the western part of this picture, we have started demolition. And I will go out after our presentation because we should have completed paving, but we have completed demolition, but we should have completed paving out there and had some striping where we will be ready to actually have a fully paved and striped lot so that we will have additional paved spaces and striping ready for Tiger games so that we can repurpose some of these locations for additional revenue for parking for the season moving forward as well. So I'm excited that we've been able at a $2.5 million acquisition cost. We have been able to gain revenue, and for right now at only $8 million and $8 million ask, renovate this building, a portion of the other warehouse, $4 million ask for that vacant parcel. We're going to repurpose around $3.3 million, the proceeds from the sale of the Union Avenue location. We will have a fueling station. So we will reactivate that location for just that amount. Chief McGowan, would you please pull up the Walter Simmons phasing plan? Scroll to the bottom, please. In 2015, we commissioned JPA, Self-Tucker, and SSR to develop a site plan, a master plan, to relocate and develop the old Walter Simmons location. And at that time, these operations were planning to move there, and it was identified that it would cost us $85 million to relocate. It's amazing that we've saved quite a bit of money with just a simple acquisition of coke and strategically relocating some operations. And now we're able to generate a little bit of revenue as well. So I ask you for $8 million to fund this particular project. All right. Moving to the next project.
Presentation. Now.
City Hall exterior, the cladding project. I'm asking for, this project is in District 6, Super District 8. It's gonna cost us $11,900,000. I'm asking for $7 million this year. I've asked for some money last fiscal year. We've started. I know you've seen the building. It's looking less attractive before it looks better. Demo is underway, but if you've noticed, next slide, scroll down. If you notice up top, the black, that is, we've started to actually install some of the cladding. So the black is some of the cladding that we've actually installed, and then of course the white is the cladding that we've installed as well. So that's just a small depiction of what we will start installing on the building. So what we've started to do is remove a lot of the marble. We have retained some marble, so we will make that available at a later date, and we will announce. But we have started demoing, we have started waterproofing the building, and then we have started installing some cladding as well. We're asking for $7 million moving forward. This is primarily for the labor. We were able to lock in and retrieve all of our all of our material. So we did get our material at a low cost. So we bought ahead, which was favorable. So I appreciate your cooperation and your partnership. Our next project is capital acquisition. And capital acquisition, we're asking for $6 million. The capital acquisition, we're strategically attacking our public safety vehicles. And that we're asking for $6 million, and that will be divided amongst our fire and our police. So you go to the breakdown will be on the next couple of pages, specifically page 8 and page 10. See. Page 8 is a breakdown of what we project in the schedule of what we will purchase for police. We work with the particular divisions to kind of identify what their priorities are as far as their needs. And we identify and work with the local vendors as far as the pricing is concerned. So that's how we identify the amount of vehicles that we can particularly buy. And then, of course, page 10 coincides with fire. All right. Then, of course, page 11, this is our major mod, and this is an annual request where Whereas we address the deferred maintenance of our building systems, the building systems of the city-owned buildings, and this includes, as Chief McGowan mentioned before, the city-owned properties, and that includes anything from our zoo properties, museums, police properties, fire properties, parks, libraries. And then, of course, we help out, we have on occasion help out with fire with their sirens and towers. But we're asking this year for $9 million. This concludes our presentation. I'm open for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adams. We have questions from Councilman Warren, Canale, and Morgan, and Johnson.
Just quickly, I wanted us all to be aware that one of the things they were talking about is moving all the vehicles off of the southeast corner of Overton Park into that area near the Coke plant at Liberty Bowl is part of the solution of the parking problem that we've had on the greensward in the zoo. So that's one of the reasons they're looking to try to get that done by next year to try to help facilitate moving cars off of the greensward. So thank you. I just wanted everyone to be aware that that's part of the puzzle.
Thank you. Councilman Canale. Oh.
Thank you, Chairman. Director Adams, where's the other $800,000 coming from on the Coke facility?
Let's see.
Which one do you need?
So right now, the 800,000, the total project cost is just, right now is an estimate. The total, the total cost for the total build out is at best an estimate. We have to finish programming the rest of the operations, move in to the headquarters.
No, I understand that. I understand
Okay.
it's an estimate.
Yeah.
But if you add up the figures, you're $800,000 short.
Short. No, I understand. I'm only asking for 8 million.
No. I get that.
Total project.
And I get what this is. That's just an estimate for the total projected costs. But for the out years of 24 and 25, and what we've spent, and we've given $8 million this year, there's got to be $800,000 somewhere that we have factored in there.
I think we just looked at it, so there was 6.8 appropriated already, and with the 8, that gives us the 14.8. I think the out years
Should be zero.
Okay.
should be zero on that. That gets us to the 14.8. If there's a cost over that, when we get the estimates back, we'll let you know.
Okay, good deal. And my second question, real quick, is the jump from $6 million this year for capital acquisition to going to 10, 11, and 12. What's your projecting, and why you see such an increase in those years coming up?
I could tackle that one for you too, Councilman. As Chief Ford mentioned, with some of the streets maintenance funding, we did some capital pay-go for equipment that was a part of streets maintenance. Normally, our allocation is in the $8, $9, $10, $11 million of capital acquisition in years past. This year, you're only seeing really fire and police in there because we bought a lot of the equipment that we need to maintain the streets, which typically is that additional money with the streets maintenance funding from a cash perspective with the referendum funds that were dedicated to street maintenance.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. There have been some updates throughout the year, and I may have missed it. Could we get and this is going to have to probably be emailed later, a further breakdown of the money that's been spent on the City Hall renovations? The $2.7 million thus far and the $7 million that you're expecting to spend this year. I just want to make sure there's nothing tucked away in that $7 million that we might not agree with, a $2 million modern art project for the third floor or something like that. If we can just get the details and the breakdown of that. That'd be very appreciative. And then also on the major mod line item, so 9 million for this year. It looks like last year was about 8.5 million, but I see a jump to 12 million in future years. Is there a particular reason for that, or is it you just kind of requested 12 million every year, but 9 million is the best you could get out of the budget this year?
Repeat that again. I was actually writing, trying.
No
I'm
problem.
sorry.
The major modifications line, in that it's you're asking for 9 million this year, but all future years there's an estimate for 12 million. Is that you wanted 12 million this year, but the best you can get was 9?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I expected.
Yeah.
And next, I appreciate the fire department still being here. I imagine it's because y'all still have $3 million worth of vehicles that are up for discussion right now. My question is going to be more on the police side of the vehicles. And this comment is seething with sarcasm and frustration. But as I look at the vehicles that we're purchasing, who makes a determination about what vehicles are needed? In terms of their capabilities, because I see some vehicles on here that only cost $23,000. Then I see our patrol vehicles that cost $41,000. But with our current, and where I'm getting to on this is our current pursuit policy, doesn't seem like we need souped up patrol cars anymore because we're not pursuing anybody.
So we work with, each division makes its determination on which vehicle they choose or what their priority is. So we work with, I think Chief Davis identified their fleet manager. So we work with their fleet manager who works with their command staff to identify what their priority, and they provide us the priority in which they want to purchase. And then of course we price out that priority. And then, of course, we provide.
And this is just my taking some time to gripe on an issue that I've discussed with Chief Davis. I've discussed with patrol officers up and down the line and citizens. And I while we're putting and paying for vehicles to go into the city streets and have capabilities that we will never use them for, because policy dictates that we basically call off all pursuits except for in very unique situations. And then if those get too excessive in speed, they get called off anyway as well, for violent felonies as well. I know it's a policy I hate, a lot of our officers hate, and I know a lot of citizens hate. It would be I think it would be even more to the front of the topic if people were more aware of our pursuit policy, and I think its inadequacies at the moment to get the job done. And that relates to the type of vehicles that we're buying as well. So I was just trying to use this platform. So,
Councilman, can I just, the patrol vehicles we purchased in 2017, we started purchasing 6-cylinder vehicles. We haven't purchased an 8-cylinder patrol vehicle, and I can't get a patrol vehicle that's 4-cylinder that's sizable to put people on the back unless I go to some subcompact. So we went to 6-cylinder purposely years ago.
We just need a little $18,000 Kia with a cage. Because we'll never go above 45 miles an hour with our policy, or maybe up to 55 on Sam Cooper.
I'll reserve the right to remain silent.
Discussion for another time, and a cheap shot from me at the moment. So I appreciate the consideration, Mr. Chair, and thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Many of the questions I had going through my mind have been addressed. But I do have one question, a couple of questions still. The siding, this balance of the project, you said the project was $11,900,000. Was that for material and labor? Or are we just only dealing with labor? You made a comment that said you purchased the material ahead of time, so for clarity.
So we were faced with an issue of escalating material costs. And so initially we had to make the decision of buying the material ahead of time and securing and locking down the material cost ahead of time, and then possibly paying for the labor maybe phasing the labor or at a later date. For example, the labor for the south and the west end of the building, paying for that at a later date. And so that's what I am paying for now, the $7 million, and I'm also paying for a new seal.
Okay, so the funds, you've already paid for the materials.
Yes,
We're
ma'am.
only paying for labor.
I'm paying for the labor for the south end of the building and the west end of the building, and I'm paying for a new seal.
Okay. I had a question too. In the majority of these estimates, it's not just for general services, general services. Estimates is just your best in-house estimates for some of these projects. Is that what you're doing?
For major
here?
mod, yes, ma'am. For major mod with respect to this, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then my question goes back to Morgan in regards to, is there ever an audit done on these automobiles as far as how many do you actually need, how long they last, how many were crashed during the year, what happened to them? You know, is there ever an audit done like that?
So when you ask for an audit, you're asking like the usefulness of the vehicle itself?
Yeah, and right. I mean, I understand some people question the cost, but at the same time, have you seen any brand or vehicle that lasts a little bit longer than the other one? That's one issue. How many did you lose this past year? If you're a police department, I'm hoping the fire department doesn't have it as bad, but the police could lose more cars than other individuals. So, you know, how we, I mean, I understand we need new vehicles, but back to who's making this determination, is there ever an audit done? And one other question, did we just buy a fire truck not too long ago?
Okay, yeah, so we'll take, I'm gonna take one question at a time.
Okay, go.
We buy fire trucks on an annual basis, but and I will say this much, there have been years in which we have not bought fire trucks, and we do have the fire apparatus that are extremely old. So our life cycle of our vehicles are extremely old. The one thing that we have to take in consideration as well is we put a lot of miles and a lot of usage on our vehicles.
Okay.
You know, notwithstanding with the average citizen or what we would like to think, we do put a lot of wear and tear on our vehicles. So we do need to replace, and we do not replace within that cycle.
I mean, my question is,
with that, yes, we did. We did buy last year. We did buy a fire truck.
Yeah, I remember. I just thought that was
Actually,
expensive item. Not that we may not need it. I'm not saying, but I just want to make sure.
Right.
How many fire trucks do we need? How often? You know, so the public can understand. We're about to spend $1.2 million on a fire truck. Explain to the public why we need it and
Yes, ma'am.
how often.
I can tell you this, for last year at our FY22 capital acquisition, we had two fire engines at a cost of $1.5 million, two of the aerial ladder trucks at a cost of $1.1 million each. So we bought two last year. We had one crew cab, 1-ton truck, 4 EMS ambulances, 1 hybrid ambulance, a logistics class 4 truck. I'm not really sure what that is. It's $208,000. And then we had the facility infrastructure to accommodate the hybrid electric vehicles and the hybrid ambulances. And then we had 1 hydrant repair vehicle. So each year, our fleet managers work with the divisions to determine, sometimes we have instances where equipment has to be replaced. Like I think this past year, we had an ambulance that caught fire. I mean, obviously, that might not have been in our program cost. The second, or going back to your very first question about the audit, in March, which has just about to happen if it hasn't happened already, Our accounting division, which covers all of the capital assets of the city, which is responsible for counting them, sends out inventory lists to each division. And each division is responsible for reporting back to us, yes, this vehicle is still in use, no, it's not, this was crashed. So some of that happens through the fleet maintenance through Director Adams, and then it's solidified through the information that's brought back to us in accounting for our annual report. So there is a list. Oh,
She could talk about fire.
oh, thank you.
Okay. All right, I was just curious about that. Yeah.
Chief Sweat, can you use the microphone, please?
Yeah, we use, we have 55 frontline engines. We follow the standard NFPA you heard me talk about with turnouts. They also have a standard for fire apparatus as far as the safe, so they can safely operate. And that's NFPA 1901 if anybody's interested in some sleeping material for tonight. And that recommendation is that the engines are on frontline for 15 years.
Okay.
And then they can go to reserve fleet for an additional 10 years. So you heard me, we currently have 55 frontline engines. 12 of those are older than 15 years old right now. On our aerial apparatus, we have 23 of those frontline apparatus, and 10 of the 23 are older than 15 years old as we speak. So we are behind on our replacement cycle. To actually replace them at the rate we need to purchase 3 engines and 1 truck every year, and our ambulance replacement cycle is a little shorter. Those last about 7 years because we're putting around 40,000 miles a year on each one of them and the wear and tear on them. So, and we currently have 6 out of our 37 of those are over 7 years old as we speak, but we do have some ordered, so we should be a little bit better on our ambulance cycle. So that we try to follow the standard because of Director Adams, the work that his folks do at the shop. We do get 10 years out. We actually run them frontline up to 25 years in some cases and get the most life that you can out of them.
Thank you, fantastic.
And that's, so these are, actually the new engines we have coming in, we do design those specs ourselves, so they are, they're not just off the shelf, they are designed for the utmost safety of our firefighters.
Fantastic, thank you for that information. I think that explains a lot of information in regards why you need new fire truck. I would assume something like that exists for the police department. So that type of information needs to be shared with the public while we need some of the funds we may need down the road for additional cars in the future. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for that. That would be helpful information. You know, I'm sure they conduct an audit, but as far as our seeing that report, I don't think that's anything that we've seen, you know, from the standpoint, well, this is how many cars were wrecked, and therefore we need to replace that. And so it's just always an ask, hey, here's our ask for this year, not knowing. And if it's a need to spend more to do so, we need to have that information. Any other questions for general services? I had a couple, and mine just really goes back to the 9 million versus the out years being 12. Based upon what was previously reported, we have 8 precincts, 57 fire stations, 18 libraries, and that does not include 300 facilities.
Yes, sir.
So if we take that 9 million divided by 383, that's 23,498 per facility. And so my question is always, or a statement that I make, I feel that this is inadequate to address some of the deferred maintenance that we have when you have this many buildings and structures. And so for us to, I just look at that whole theory of the broken window. And when we have our own projects or own buildings that we own that are in a state of disrepair, what is that saying to the people that live in that community when we do so? And so you know, however many buildings that we have, $161,000 for plumbing across everything that we own. 235,000 for carpentry. And so I know that this is the capital. This is where we borrow the money to do so. But there's another we have operating. And so those would be some of the discussions, but when it comes to operating, though, so much of operating is personnel services. I still think that we are just doing, we're not doing a good job of maintaining our facilities. And I'm not necessarily talking about facilities that may belong to police and fire. I'm still talking about the things that we touch, the community centers, the libraries that people go to. I know we're improving, we're having some large capital projects, but when it just comes to so many buildings that we have, to have $9 million for major modifications, I just think is inadequate.
Councilman, I appreciate that. I just also want to recall, we share the same sentiment. That's one of the reasons in Accelerate Memphis, we put $37 million of deferred maintenance into our park system. So really, over the next 2 years, that's whatever that adds up to. It's $18.5 million just in the parks division. That's for structures and community centers and those kinds of things. One of the other things you'll hear Director Walker talk about with the proposed allocation of the 2.6, as we have done in the past, we know that there are particular things that are aggravating in community centers and libraries that council members you get complaints about. We'd like to be able to remedy those quickly. So I'm really counting in that 2.6 to help us this year as well with some of those things. It may be equipment that you'd like, those kinds of things, but we understand that's one of the reasons we did Accelerate Memphis, to begin reinvesting in some of those areas. And quite frankly, I want to harken back to what Chief Ford said. We are working really hard with Accelerate Memphis and some of those projects as a bridge to get to that debt cliff, and which is now 2026, which we can almost see on the horizon here, where we have a lot more capital pay go to begin spending on things. So I appreciate the comment, because we certainly agree that we could be spending more on deferred maintenance, and that's what we've got underway right now with Accelerate Memphis.
Any other questions for general services? Seeing none, may I have a motion, please?
Second.
Okay, has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving the capital improvement budget for general services, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Colleagues, we are scheduled for a break. Let's start back at 5:55. Gives us about 8 minutes. budget hearings for the fiscal year 2023. Colleagues, it's the will of the body. The King of Ghana is in town, and I know that we were all invited to that, but we have this obligation to do too. So I'm hopeful that we can sort of breeze through the remainder of the presentations to get out of here to do that. But also, I want to take the time too. Ms. Johnson reminded me, yesterday we lost a legend here in the city of Memphis when Mr. Bobby O.J. passed away. And so just wanted to take a moment of silence to recognize him and give thoughts and prayers to his family. Thank you. So colleagues, we have 4 other divisions, and what I'm thinking is that tomorrow we're slated to get out at 5, where we were going to 7. So perhaps we can have those 2 presentations, we can push those to tomorrow so we can, the last two scheduled for today, information technology and engineering. So those 2 combined are about an hour. We're slated to get out at 5 o'clock tomorrow. So if we add an hour to that, that'll have us out at 6 o'clock tomorrow. Tomorrow? Oh, okay. Yeah, so what I was reminded of, Chief Ford cannot be here after 5 tomorrow, but we can, if there are any questions that are related to finance, we can make those notations. Okay, well, Ms. McGowan will be here. Yeah. Okay. So we'll just, I don't think we need a motion for that. If it's just will of the body, we'll just reschedule. And we'll send out just a revised schedule for tomorrow to include. And I'll leave it up to staff to come up with the schedule. Well, we'll just push everybody back and have IT and engineering before parks and the others that are on here. Okay.
So IT and engineering and urban art will be tomorrow at the top of the schedule at 3:30.
Well, where do you see urban art?
Well, urban art is part of the engineering.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
So let them know to be here at 3:30 tomorrow, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wendy. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. So we will start back up with HCD and Director Cash. Good evening and welcome.
Yes.
And the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Thank you, Councilman and Chair. We have 2 Ashley Cash, Director, Housing and Community Development. We have 2 projects that we are requesting CIP funds for. Chief McGowan, if you can go to the next, click it twice. Our total request today is $2.5 million. So the first request is $2 million to complete the city's commitment to Choice Neighborhood South City grant in partnership with Memphis Housing Authority. We've got leadership from MHA here today. If there are any questions, and of course to support this request, we are in the process of phase 4 construction is underway for South City. We've completed phase 1, 2, and 3. That is about 374 units that have been completed. We have, from those, about 34% of the residents who have moved into those facilities are former Foot Homes residents, and so we're really excited about that. And we know the case management and people team continue to work with former residents to, encourage and support them in moving back into the community. It's been a great development, and that request is $2 million. I don't think I wanted to say anything else about that. So next slide, please. And what I will say about Foot Park is if you drive or walk around the area, it's a huge transformation. It's beautiful. Sorry, Chief. Thank you. I'm going off script a little bit. Really beautiful, really nice homes, a diverse mix of housing types, and there are market rate units, but also affordable and subsidized units. But it's a great improvement. You can see the picture on the top left is former, And what you see around is the current and an indoor picture of a beautiful kitchen. So really proud of that project and thankful for the city support over the last couple of years. And then Chief, if you go to the next slide, I believe our next request is for another exciting project. It is Edgeview at Legends Park. So it's on Poplar across from the Lebaner Family Rehab Center. Am I saying that right? And it's adjacent to Legends Park community. This will be senior housing, a 99 unit affordable housing mix. There'll be 7% of the units will be set aside for veterans. We know that veterans housing is a huge problem in our city and the country. And so 7%. Will be for veterans housing, and then all the units will be for seniors ages 62 and older. 100% of the units will have project-based vouchers, meaning people will pay at most 30% of their income for rent. We've got also our partners here, MHA and their development partner, Penrose, in the room today. MHA has over 1,800 seniors on their housing voucher list. So senior housing is a huge need. There aren't enough units, and so we're excited about this project. The request is just $500,000. We're filling that last gap. And they recently received, I think, their THDA award. So really excited to make this project come to fruition and bring additional senior housing into our community. That is our, I'm sorry?
$232,000 a unit for that?
Well, I'll tell you what, let's finish her presentation and we can have questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Chair. So that is our request, $2.5 million for this development and also the Choice Neighborhood development. With that, Chair, that is the end of the presentation. And if there are any other questions, I'm happy to respond to those.
Okay. Councilman Warren.
Motion to approve? Yeah.
Okay. Yes, so motion has been made, but we are going to entertain questions before we go
I just have
to.
one quick question on just the cost.
Yes.
So it's $23 million, I think was the total number. It's 99 units. I was just curious how it's at $232,000 a unit.
Sure. I would ask if Dexter, if y'all are able to respond to that question.
Sir, if you could come up and introduce yourself for the record, please.
Thank you, Council. Dexter Washington, Chief Executive Officer of Memphis Housing Authority. To address your question, so the actual building cost of these units is projected at about $160,000. So the additional cost is related to the soft costs related to the project. Yeah.
Yeah, the total development cost is $232 a door. That seems astronomically high, even in this environment, for a stick-built 4-story building that's basically kind of garden style. But I'm not in your project. That's an extraordinarily high number, but that's I guess the number is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely the nature of the construction time that we're in right now. We've seen an increase of our original costs of about 40%. So, yeah.
Thanks. All right, well, excited about that. You know what we can get.
Yeah.
Colleagues, any other questions? Question that I have is, how was the percentage for veterans determined?
Originally, what we wanted to do was include about 7 veteran housing units in the building plan, and the original building plan was 131 units. So, because of cost increases and because we had to also reduce the site size, the footprint of the building, it was originally 4.77 acres. We had to reduce it down to 3.82. We wanted to keep those 7 units. We just thought that we wanted to be inclusive of our city's homeless veterans, but we also wanted to address other populations as well. One of the other set-asides that we're doing is about 25% for extremely low-income households. So that's households that are at or below 30% of the AMI. So that'll be 25 units there, and then the additional ones will fall within the PBV voucher range.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other questions? Would note that we've been joined by Councilwoman Michael and Easter Thomas. A motion has been made on this. Oh, sorry.
Can I just add one thing as a thank you to the council, especially on the Fit Homes project? When we talked about those out years from 2017 through 2021, this council approved $5 million. Just every year you made that commitment to this project, you stayed with it, and then in these last 2 years in FY '22 and then coming into FY '23 is the final phase. And, just how incredible that is that you have stayed with that project and how beautiful it is and how our planning for our out years really makes sense, and it enables a project to come to fruition. So thank you very much for that support.
All those in favor of this item, which is the CIP budget for HCD? Well, who seconded that? I know you made the motion. Okay, Warren and Johnson. Any opposed? That item passes.
Thank you.
Yes. So next we will have the Convention Center.
This is how we would choose who's on impasse.
Oh. But we'll do it after this.
Steamroll these next few. The King's waiting.
We only have 2. Yeah, we'll be done. We're not doing these.
Yeah, I'm about to send out the new schedule.
Okay, colleagues, next we have up the the Renaissance Convention Center.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, Chief Ford, Chief McGowan, good to see all of you tonight. We're fairly brief this evening, as we have spent a lot of money at 255 North Main. We are very proud of our improvements and a lot of success.
Will you turn your mic on, Mr. Dennis, please?
There it is. It's back on now. We've had a lot of success having reopened, and as the pandemic wanes somewhat, with our fingers crossed, we've had a very successful first part of of our fiscal year this year. So we're very proud of that. We had discussed a cover line amount of $400,000 for last year, which we have spent the majority of it with some improvements at the Cannon Center and some improvements in the Convention Center, some IT upgrades, some security upgrades, et cetera, that were not part of the construction. And moving forward into next year, this request is for an additional $400,000 that would go towards 2 things that we think we really need to do after having been open now for 18 months. And excuse me, I have not introduced Chuck Jabor, our Assistant General Manager and Director of Finance. We have to make some additional acoustic upgrades in the exhibit hall that we just find that the sound is not where we want it to be. And so we have the need to improve that. And then secondly is the air handling unit. Air handler number 9 in our building was not part of the renovation. And it's a 30-year-old unit that has to be replaced. And so those are 2 items, again, that were not part of the construction and things that we'll need to replace in a go-forward plan. So we have a lot of items that were not completed and that will continue to be on the list. But these 2 things, in terms of this $400,000 request, are things that we definitely will need to do moving forward.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded for this approval of $400,000 for the Convention Center. Colleagues, any questions? I do have one, Mr. Dennis.
Yes,
there
sir.
was, I think that maybe the first large convention that we had may have been the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority.
Yes,
we received calls about an elevator. Was it an elevator or an escalator that was inoperable during that time?
It was an escalator.
Okay.
And one of the patrons had got their dress caught in the escalator.
Okay.
And there's no incident, there was no issue, but it did take it out of service.
Okay.
And so we had to get it back on. So it was out for probably about 30 minutes that morning. But 30 minutes is long enough to start getting phone calls.
Yeah, okay, got it. Okay.
So, for sure.
Thank
So,
you.
Again, and then our other, just to mention elevators real quick, Councilman Warren had worked with us and you all as well, Chairman, on money for the escalator or elevators at the Cannon Center and as part of the ARPA funds. And that project is underway. We've spent $50,000 on the design and it's in process.
Okay, great. All those in favor of the Convention Center allocation under the CIP budget, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item passes. Next, we will have Meta. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary Rosenfeld, CEO of Memphis Area Transit Authority. Happy to be here with you today to express our gratitude for the $150 million that you're going. Just trying to see if I could get Chief Ford to go. Me? That would be the real number, but here's where we're at. For fiscal 23, total GO bond request of about $6 million. As you can see on page 1, we bring in a bunch of federal grants. We were very successful this year with our CIG grant, making it into the president's budget. It's important that we communicate to our congressional delegation that we want to see this budget passed. Another $7.5 million coming from the state, and then some Shelby County money that is still sitting out there. We had submitted a project using that money as local match money, but unfortunately at the federal level it was not accepted. Moving to page 2, we show that there's the allocations of about $7 million expended to date for the BRT Innovation Corridor. That's where that $46 million is going, as well as the $12 million build grant. That project is moving ahead with full steam. We anticipate a paper grant agreement with the federal government for the build grant funds sometime in the next 30 days, and having an agreement on the CIG as quickly after congressional approval of the budget. So FTA is working toward that. We are as well. On page 3, we're showing transit vision projects, a continuation of that fiscal 23 funding of $1 million. Doesn't go very far, especially when bus shelters cost about $35,000 a piece, but we will be using it as we can to replace bus shelters and to improve amenities at within our facilities. We have carryover funds of $427,000 for paratransit buses. We have an order of paratransit buses that'll be being delivered hopefully in June. My team was at the factory in Detroit, and they've touched them all. They've seen them. We're just waiting for them to be finished and then delivered. There's 22 of those units there. And $1.2 million for operations and maintenance facility repairs. As you know, our facility is 40 years old and has sunk 16 feet since the day it opened, which makes life interesting. The buses no longer can, the approach angle and departure angle of the buses makes it difficult to get the buses in and out of the garage facility at this point. I'm afraid to open the asphalt because once we open it, we start paying until it's closed, and we don't know what that might look like. So that continues to be a major problem for us, but we will be seeking federal funds through the bus and bus facilities grant process. That grant application closes in the end of May 31st, I believe. And I will be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Colleagues, any questions on the matter, CIP? Councilwoman Johnson and Robinson.
Thank you for that presentation. But for clarity, describe a bus shelter that's costing $35,000.
If you if you were to see the tubular shelters that we have been installing around the city, the actual shelter cost, the material, is about $16,000. The reason why they cost so much is in order for us to put it up, we have to ensure that there's an ADA path of travel and that we have to get the right-of-way to have the shelter on the property. So when you add it all up, it's an average of about $36,000 per shelter. And if you add additional amenities, the price goes even higher. But they're expensive, and it's not, we can't do it the way it used to be done, where you just throw up the little glass shelter.
Yeah.
Those are no longer safe for us to use. But the tubular ones are lasting really well. They're holding up really well, but they're expensive, no doubt.
I'm gonna go find one.
I'm sorry?
Where's one located? Because I haven't seen it.
If you go down Union, we've just put a whole bunch along Union. There's still some older ones on Union too, but Union and Cleveland, that intersection's heavy intersection for bus traffic to begin with. So we, recently we've upgraded the shelters there.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Roberts.
I just wanted to.
Microphone, please.
Sorry.
I just wanted to make a statement. Please remind me to send you the information. I attended the Region 4 Children's Environmental Health Stakeholders Meetings for state, tribal, and local governments. And one gentleman spoke today and said they have $5 billion they need to spend, and we want to spend it for transportation for children in Memphis. Please remind me to send you that information.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sure there's an email waiting for you already.
Okay. $5 billion.
$5 billion. Yeah, there's.
From federal government.
Now, that sounds very exciting, and I'm excited about it. But the thing that we have to remember is that all of these grant programs come with local match requirements, and local match dollars are running thin because I'm sure all of my colleagues that have been before you today and the ones that will be before you tomorrow, we're all going after the same federal funds. So I don't envy Chief Ford in her role in trying to manage what's available from a local perspective, but it's all out there. Now, in our last discussions with FTA, we have asked them to please review their rules, because what they want today is that you have to demonstrate committed funds for your local match dollars. We're asking them to ask for the commitment at the time of an award rather than at the time of submission. That should, at least that'll relieve the issue for a little bit of it, but it's a big issue nationwide for cities and agencies that are funded the way we are.
Great. Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the presentation. The question is on the shelters. Now, these are the shelters that matter. You may have mentioned it and I missed it. What about the shelters that were owned by the other
advertising company?
The advertising companies. Did we get all of those removed?
We did get all of those removed.
Is
It
this
occurred
for
a bit late.
replacing those?
Some of these will replace those, but we're in the process. We're out to bid right now for advertising to see if we can get a program to replace some of those. And then recently, I visited a transit agency that has done some innovative work with respect to ad shelter investment, where they were able to issue a franchise agreement to an advertising company in exchange for a large dollar investment in shelters and such. We're going to investigate that to see if it's doable here in Memphis. But it would be it'd be way outside of what our typical contracts are, 5 years or less. This agency did a 20-year franchise agreement for advertising, and we're able to secure tens of millions of dollars worth of shelters. So we're going to see if that'll work here.
Now, some of those that were removed, they left the bench, and now the bench has become like for graffiti. We're going to have those removed as well, the benches?
We certainly would like to leave the benches, but we'd like to clean up the graffiti. So if you have any, if you have a moment,
I'll
just send us
well.
an address. We'll take care of that.
The ones that are owned by the missions, are they still going to remain? The benches that are owned by the mission?
That's a separate program. That's not ours. That we don't control that at all.
Okay, because they're at the bus stop.
Right.
How do we?
If you let me know if there's any problems with those, we'll reach out to the mission, but that's not our program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you back, Chair?
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, the question that I have is looking at page 2, just making sure I'm reconciling everything correctly. GO funding, 22 million, so I'm adding the funds expended to date. Total funding, 5 million, and then going out, that's 24. You with me?
GO funding amount, 22 million
Yes.
to date.
So am I to add 7,
You're at
5, and 7?
Yes.
So that's 24. So
No, that'll be 5 and 7 is 12 onto the 22, total for 32 million, or 34 million, excuse me.
okay, so this 22 has
Already been committed. In other words, we've been taking CIP funds for the last 3 years, and that was totaling 22 million. In order to meet the match that we submitted to the Department of Transportation, we'll need to bring in another 12 million. So we have a total of 57 million coming from the federal government. We'll have 34 million provided locally from the city.
right, but the only part I'm looking at, the GO is the only part that applies to us.
Yes,
So,
sir. Yes.
so we're adding the 7, 5.
You're adding you've got the GO bonding to date of 22, and then you'll add the 24 amount.
But that doesn't say that. So help me out, Chief. So I'm looking at expended to date is 7 million.
But 22
But
committed.
how does the 22 fit into all
I'm
of
trying
this?
to figure out how you get to 22 too. So we have expended to date that we have allocated and appropriated $7 million,
Right.
$7,084,000. Then we are asking for 5 this year, which brings us to 12.
Right.
Agreed. Asking for 5 and 24, which brings us to 17, right? And 7
Gives us
and
24.
25 gets you to 24.
Right. So how does that relate to that 22 there? So are we saying 2 million more? Is it, so that 22, am I wrong to think that those all together should add up to 24?
Should be 22. So why should it be 24? So I think in your out year 25 should be 5 million, not 7 million.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. If that's the explanation, unless there's something else, that satisfies my question. That's it? Okay. Okay. So we had a motion, second. All those in favor of this, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Before we convene, we have to do a drawing for the impasse. Everybody's name is in there, so it's being done at random. Okay. So, Ms. Crichton, will you do the honor of pulling? So the person that's selected will have to serve.
When is it? Then the next committee with myself and Kobe.
Mariah's going to set a record for Mr. Chairman, I would like to point out that I have voted against us changing our meeting dates because I will be out of town. And if I am chosen, I will not serve. I'll be leaving on Friday.
All right. Ms. Crichton.
Let's just take Jeff's name out.
Well, we don't know what Jeff's name is.
So this will be for the IBEW crafts.
Okay.
Councilman Smiley, Councilman Colvett.
Patrice wisely walked out of here.
Well, her name is in there, though.
She got Smiley and Colvett.
Okay, but now you got to throw a name back in there.
Throw a name back in there?
Yeah. Shake it up.
I wonder what the committee's going to recommend with that setup.
Okay, so this is for the IUOE operators with Councilman Smiley and Councilman Matt.
Okay. Yes.
Who's joining me?
Wonder where that's going.
All right.
Oh my God.
Well, depending upon what that is, it can't be past the 13th or the 16th for me, so I'll be out of town. Okay.
2 days I can meet.
All right.
I'll choose between the 11th and the 16th. I don't think so. Not much like spending 40 minutes.
Okay.
I'll be across the state.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.